Finally, let's look at calling anonymous functions with several output arguments and what that means. To begin, let's consider a function that has 3 input arguments and 4 output arguments. Maybe something we wrote called my function. There it is, 3 input arguments and 4 output arguments. The code isn't important. Here's some anonymous function definitions, each of which calls my function in different manners. Start by defining some variables which will be used in the anonymous function definitions, and then let's define 3. The first is an anonymous function that has 1 input argument. What it does with that input argument is actually call my function. The input argument of the anonymous function becomes the second input argument to my function, and the first and third input arguments of my function are the value 3 and the value in the variable rvar at the time of creation, here 1.34. So h4 is a very specialized call to my function. Another anonymous function, also of 1 input argument, is defined similarly. In fact, because the value of a1 at the time of its creation is 3, and the value of rvar at the time of the creation of the anonymous function above was 1.34, the behavior of h5 and h4 are exactly the same. Lastly, h6 is a handle to an anonymous function with 2 input arguments. The first input argument becomes the first input argument to my function. The second input argument becomes the third input argument to my function. And the second input to my function is hardwired to be a 0. Again, here's an anonymous function that is a very special case of a call to my function. Now my function returns 4 output arguments. We haven't studied that. What does that mean? Well, it means that you can use these function handles with up to 4 output arguments. For instance, h6, which accepts 2 input arguments, can be called with 2 output arguments, but it could also be called with 1, 2, 3, or 4 output arguments. Here h4, which accepts 1 input argument, is being called with 4 output arguments. So if the anonymous function is a call to an existing function that has multiple output arguments, then the anonymous function can be called with multiple output arguments up to the number of output arguments defined in the function. We'll use this type of construction extensively when we work with differential equations and the Matlab differential equation solver ODE45. The ODE45 program requires the differential equation be specified in a very special manner, whereas the way in which you might write functions describing your differential equation will be more general. In that way, you'll be creating anonymous functions that are very specialized calls to your function which describes the system you're modeling with the differential equation.